A man named David Kraft in North Carolina is growing a crop on 6 acres of land. Last year, that crop generated $1.2 million in revenue. He doesn't have a warehouse, he doesn't have investors, he doesn't have a distribution deal with a major retailer. He has 6 acres, the right plant, and a waiting list of buyers. And almost nobody knows this business exists. Here's what bothers me about the farming conversation in this country. Every year, millions of people dream about owning land, growing something, building a life that doesn't depend on a boss or a clock or a paycheck from someone else. And almost every single one of them is pointed toward the same crops: corn, soybeans, tomatoes, squash, the same things everybody else is growing, competing for the same buyers, fighting over the same thin margins. And then they wonder why the numbers never quite work. Here's the truth nobody in the conventional farming world wants you to know. The most profitable crops on earth are not the ones being advertised in the seed catalogs. They're not the ones your county extension office is recommending. They're not the ones your neighbor is growing. They're sitting in a completely different category: specialty crops, medicinal plants, gourmet ingredients, ancient spices, functional foods. And the farmers who found them, quietly, without fanfare, without anyone handing them a roadmap, are building generational wealth from plots of land that most people would consider too small to matter. This video is about 14 of those plants, and if you pay close attention, you'll start to see a business model hiding inside every single one of them. What separates a $30,000 per year farmer from a $300,000 per year farmer is almost never acreage. It's almost never equipment. It's almost never location. It's crop selection. The farmers who are quietly building million-dollar operations from small plots of land have figured out one thing that changes everything. When you grow what everyone else is growing, you compete on price. And competing on price on a small farm is a losing game against industrial operations that have economies of scale you'll never match. But when you grow what almost nobody else is growing, something with genuine scarcity, genuine demand, and a buyer who will pay a premium because they can't get it anywhere else, the entire equation flips. You stop competing, you start commanding. That's the model, and the 14 plants I'm about to show you are the crops that make that model work. One more thing before we get into the list. Everything I'm covering today, the full sourcing guide, the business models, the buyer contacts, the scaling strategy, is laid out step by step in the Become a Millionaire Farmer Guide. Link is in the description. For now, let's get into it.
Number 1. Saffron. $10,000 per pound. Let that land for a second. Saffron is the most expensive spice on earth by weight. It comes from the dried stigmas of the Crocus sativus flower. Each flower produces exactly 3 stigmas. Every gram of saffron requires roughly 150 flowers to produce. It is harvested entirely by hand. That's why it costs what it costs, and that's why the opportunity is real. Here's what most people don't know. Saffron is not a tropical plant. It doesn't need a greenhouse. It doesn't need special equipment. It grows in temperate climates across most of the United States, including the Northeast, the Midwest, and the Pacific Northwest. 1 acre of saffron can produce 3 to 5 pounds of dried saffron per year at peak production. At $5,000 per pound on the conservative end of the wholesale market, that's $15,000 to $25,000 per acre annually, from a crop that most American farmers have never once considered planting. The global saffron market is dominated by Iran, but food security concerns and increasing demand for domestic specialty ingredients means American-grown saffron commands a serious premium from chefs, specialty retailers, and direct consumers. One farmer in Pennsylvania started with a 1/4 acre. She now supplies 12 restaurants in Philadelphia and ships direct to consumer online. Her 1/4 acre clears over $40,000 per year. Plant the corms in late summer, harvest in autumn. The corms multiply underground every year. Your yield grows without replanting. This is what a real passive income crop looks like. Number 2. Wasabi. $70 to $160 per pound, and right now in the United States, there are fewer than a handful of commercial wasabi farms in the entire country. Read that again. The demand is enormous. Every Japanese restaurant in America needs it. High-end food manufacturers need it. Specialty grocers need it. And almost nobody is supplying real domestic wasabi because almost nobody knows you can grow it here. Real wasabi, Wasabia japonica, needs cool temperatures, high humidity, moist, well-drained soil, and deep shade. It takes 18 months to 2 years to produce harvestable rhizomes. But here's the business case. Once you have an established wasabi operation, your buyers don't leave. The supply is so limited that chefs and distributors who find a reliable domestic source stay loyal for years. You're not competing on price. You're the only option. The Pacific Northwest, parts of the UK, cooler mountain regions of the eastern US. If you have the right microclimate, you have a near monopoly on a product commanding restaurant-grade premium prices. One farm in Oregon supplies wasabi to over 40 restaurants across 3 states. They can't grow enough to meet their current demand. That's the position you want to be in. Number 3. Ginseng. This one requires patience, but the payoff is unlike almost anything else in agriculture. Wild simulated ginseng, grown in forest shade conditions that replicate its natural habitat, sells for $400 to $600 per pound dried. Some premium grades command even more. The primary buyer is the export market, particularly China and Korea, where ginseng has been a prized medicinal root for over 5,000 years. Here's the model. You plant ginseng seeds under a mature hardwood forest canopy. You do very little for 6 to 8 years. The roots grow slowly, developing the characteristic shape and density that commands the highest prices. Then you harvest and sell. One grower in Appalachian, Virginia, planted ginseng across 12 wooded acres. 8 years later, he harvested over $200,000 worth of root in a single season, from land that was sitting idle, producing nothing. The waiting period feels long, but consider this. You can plant ginseng today under existing tree cover on land you already own. You do minimal work for 6 years, and then you harvest what is essentially a high-value cash crop that grew itself while you were doing everything else. Very few investments, in farming or anywhere else, offer that kind of return on time and land that would otherwise sit unused. Number 4. Truffles. Black Perigord truffles sell for $300 to $800 per pound. White truffles from Italy fetch over $3,000 per pound at peak season. For decades, people believed truffles could only be foraged in specific regions of France and Italy. That belief has made a small number of farmers in the United States, Australia, and New Zealand extraordinarily wealthy. Here's how it works. Truffle farms are established by planting inoculated trees, oak or hazelnut saplings whose roots have been colonized with truffle spores. The trees grow, the truffle mycelium spreads through the soil. After 7 to 12 years, the farm begins producing. Once it starts producing, it can continue for 30 years or more. A mature truffle orchard of 50 acres in the right climate can generate over $1 million per year at harvest. And because American-grown truffles are still relatively rare, domestic buyers, Michelin-starred restaurants, specialty distributors, luxury food retailers are actively seeking reliable suppliers. This is the long game, but it's one of the few agricultural models where the upside is genuinely unlimited and the product almost sells itself. Number 5. Vanilla. The second most expensive spice in the world after saffron. Real vanilla beans sell for $50 to $100 per pound depending on grade and origin, and global demand is consistently outpacing supply. Vanilla is an orchid, a climbing vine that grows in tropical and subtropical conditions. In the United States, that means Hawaii, southern Florida, and greenhouse operations across the country. The vanilla industry has a structural problem that creates a permanent opportunity for small producers. The major commercial supply comes from Madagascar and faces constant disruption from weather events and political instability. Food manufacturers and specialty producers are desperately seeking domestic supply. One vanilla grower in Hawaii supplies directly to 3 premium ice cream brands. His 2-acre greenhouse operation generates over $180,000 per year. Every vanilla bean is hand-pollinated and hand-harvested. That labor intensity is exactly why the prices stay high and exactly why large industrial operations struggle to dominate this market. Small, attentive growers have a genuine structural advantage. Number 6. Bamboo. This one surprises people every single time. Bamboo plants in 5-gallon containers sell for $25 to $150 each at retail. Landscapers, garden centers, privacy screen installations, and bamboo grove restoration projects are buying them constantly. Here's the model. You propagate bamboo from divisions of an existing clump. One mature bamboo plant produces dozens of divisions per year. Each division goes into a container, grows for one season, and sells for $30 to $150 depending on variety. One nursery operator in Georgia started with 12 bamboo plants. 3 years later, she had over 2,000 container plants, generating $80,000 per year in sales from a half-acre operation running out of her backyard. Bamboo also produces annually without replanting. The root system spreads and generates new shoots every spring. Your inventory essentially grows itself. Running bamboo varieties for privacy screens are in particularly high demand. A single privacy screen installation for a suburban homeowner can move 50 to 100 plants at $50 or more each. Landscape contractors are constantly looking for reliable local supply.
Number 7. Gourmet mushrooms. $10 to $30 per pound, and you don't need farmland to grow them. Oyster mushrooms, shiitake, lion's mane, maitake, these are gourmet ingredients and functional medicine simultaneously. Demand from restaurants, farmers markets, health food stores, and direct consumers has been growing consistently for over a decade. Here's what makes this model unique among everything on this list. Mushrooms don't require soil. They don't require sunlight. They don't require acreage. They grow on logs, sawdust blocks, and straw in a shaded corner of a barn, a basement, or a garage. The startup cost is low. The production cycle is fast. Some varieties produce in as little as 2 weeks from inoculation, and the margins on direct-to-consumer sales at farmers markets are extraordinary. One farmer in Vermont runs a mushroom operation from a converted barn. No field crops, no livestock, just mushrooms. His operation generates $120,000 per year. This is one of the few crops on this list where you can go from zero to first harvest in under a month and start building a customer base immediately while your longer-term crops are still establishing. Number 8. Lavender. 1 acre of lavender in full production generates $10,000 to $30,000 annually, depending on how you sell it. Raw lavender bundles at farmers markets, dried lavender for florists and wedding planners, lavender essential oil at $150 to $300 per pound, lavender products, soaps, sachets, culinary lavender, sold direct to consumer online. The business model for lavender is uniquely powerful because you're not dependent on a single buyer or a single product. One crop produces multiple revenue streams simultaneously. Lavender farms that add agritourism, you-pick weekends, farm tours, lavender festivals are generating an additional $50,000 to $100,000 annually from the same acre of plants. A family in Sequim, Washington turned 4 acres of lavender into a destination farm, generating over $500,000 per year across essential oils, direct retail, and you-pick events. The lavender itself is the product, but the experience of the farm becomes an entirely separate business built on top of it. Number 9. Moringa. Called the miracle tree, fastest growing tree on Earth and one of the most nutrient-dense plants known to science. Fresh moringa leaves sell for $10 to $20 per pound. Dried moringa powder sells for $20 to $40 per pound in the supplement market. And moringa seed oil, used in cosmetics and pharmaceuticals, commands over $50 per ounce. Moringa grows aggressively in warm climates, zone 9 and above, and can be grown as an annual in cooler zones. In tropical conditions, it produces harvestable leaves within 60 days of planting. A single tree can be harvested multiple times per year. The global moringa market is projected to reach $10 billion by 2028. Domestic supply in the United States is virtually non-existent relative to demand. Supplement brands, health food companies, and cosmetic manufacturers are actively seeking American suppliers. This is a ground floor opportunity in a market that is growing faster than the domestic supply chain can currently support. Number 10. Stevia, the natural zero-calorie sweetener that the food industry has spent the last decade trying to scale up. Dried stevia leaf sells for $30 to $45 per pound. Stevia extract, the refined form used in beverages and food products, commands far more. And the market is being driven by one of the most powerful consumer trends of the last generation, the global shift away from refined sugar. Here's the supply problem that creates the opportunity. Most commercial stevia comes from China and South America. American food manufacturers, particularly premium and organic brands, are actively seeking domestic supply to put on their labels. A small-scale stevia operation of 2 acres can produce $20,000 to $40,000 in dried leaf annually. The plant is relatively easy to grow in most temperate climates, can be propagated from cuttings, and produces in its first year. The buyer is not a farmer's market customer. The buyer is a food manufacturer, and food manufacturers sign contracts, pay reliably, and buy consistently year after year. Number 11. Elderberry. Fresh elderberries sell for $4 to $7 per pound. Dried elderberries sell for $30 to $50 per pound. And since 2020, the demand for elderberry as an immune-supporting supplement has exploded to the point where domestic growers cannot meet existing orders. Elderberry syrup brands, supplement manufacturers, and specialty food producers are all competing for the same limited domestic supply. One agricultural broker in the Midwest recently told a farming publication he could move 10 times his current elderberry volume if he could source it. Elderberry bushes begin producing in their second or third year. They're cold-hardy across most of the United States. They require minimal maintenance once established and produce for 20 to 30 years from the same root system. One farmer in Missouri planted 3 acres of elderberry. By year 4, he was generating $45,000 per year from dried berry sales alone, with a processing operation added in year 5 that tripled his revenue. Number 12. Aronia berry, also called black chokeberry, one of the highest antioxidant fruits ever measured and one of the most sought-after ingredients in the functional food and nutraceutical industry. Fresh aronia sells for $1.50 to $3 per pound at the farm gate, processed into juice, powder, or extract, and that same fruit commands 10 to 20 times more per unit. The domestic aronia industry is still in its early stages. Brokers and processors are actively signing supply agreements with new growers because demand from supplement and beverage manufacturers is growing faster than the existing farms can supply it. Aronia shrubs are extraordinarily hardy, surviving temperatures as low as -50 degrees Fahrenheit. They require minimal inputs, resist most pests and diseases, and begin producing in their second or third year. This is the definition of a ground floor crop. The market is established, the buyers are ready, the supply gap is wide open.
Number 13. Medicinal herbs. The global herbal medicine market is worth $180 billion and growing at over 8% per year. Ashwagandha, echinacea, valerian, St. John's wort, holy basil. These aren't exotic crops. They grow in most American climates. They can be started from seed. They produce in their first or second year. And the buyers are everywhere. Supplement manufacturers, herbal tea companies, natural health retailers, direct-to-consumer online stores, farmers market customers who will pay $8 to $15 for a small bundle of fresh medicinal herbs. Here's the model that's working right now. Small medicinal herb farmers who establish direct relationships with supplement manufacturers or herbalists are signing multi-year supply agreements worth $50,000 to $200,000 annually from operations of 2 to 5 acres. The key is growing certified organic. Supplement manufacturers sourcing domestic medicinal herbs are almost exclusively looking for certified organic supply. The certification adds a layer of startup complexity, but it multiplies your selling price by 2 to 3 times immediately. Number 14. Ramps. We close with the one that started the most conversations when we covered it last time. Wild leeks, $20 to $30 a bunch at farmers markets. Chefs treating ramp season like a culinary holiday. Foragers guarding their patches like buried treasure. And here's the farming business case. Ramps are a perennial woodland crop. Plant them once under existing tree canopy, they return every year. They spread slowly on their own. They require virtually no inputs. The market for cultivated ramps is severely undersupplied because most ramps reaching restaurants and markets are foraged rather than farmed. A farmer who establishes a cultivated ramp patch is positioned to offer something foragers can't: reliable, consistent, traceable supply. Restaurants want supply agreements. They want to know that every spring, when ramp season hits, their allocation is guaranteed. Foragers can't promise that. A farmer can. One producer in West Virginia supplies 4 restaurants in Washington, D.C., and 2 specialty grocers. His 2-acre woodland ramp operation generates $28,000 in 6 weeks of spring sales. Then he goes back to his other crops for the rest of the year. $28,000, 6 weeks, 2 acres, under trees that were already there. Here's what I want you to notice about every single crop on this list. None of them are complicated to grow. None of them require massive acreage. None of them require expensive equipment or deep agricultural experience. What they require is knowing they exist, knowing who's buying them, knowing how to position yourself as a supplier, and knowing how to build the operation correctly from the start so you're not leaving money on the table in year 1. That's exactly what the Become a Millionaire Farmer Guide covers. The sourcing, the buyers, the business models, the scaling strategy, the direct-to-consumer channels, the wholesale relationships, the crops that produce in year 1, and the crops you plant today that will make you wealthy in year 7. The full system, step by step. We've had farmers come back after going through this guide who tripled their per-acre revenue in a single growing season just by changing what they planted and who they sold it to. Not by working harder, by knowing more. The link to the Become a Millionaire Farmer Guide is in the description below. It's called that because that's what it's designed to do. If you're sitting on land right now, or dreaming about land, or trying to figure out how to make a farming life actually work financially, this is the shortcut to a plan that's already working for farmers across the country. Go read what's on that page. Make your own decision. The link is below. And if you're not ready for that yet, subscribe, because every video on this channel is designed to show you exactly what profitable farming looks like in the real world, one crop at a time. Now you know what to plant.